welcome to an episode of Sittin Courtside. Today is Thursday. It's November 7th when you're listening to this. You might be wondering, what kind of hell have you got yourself in, Jordan? Well, guys, we don't quit. I'm currently traveling for work, so I do not have access to good, quote unquote, internet. So I'm currently sitting in a car. So this will be dubbed the car episode. But you don't care what we look like. You care about the content. So without further ado, Kyle, tell me what we're talking about today.
All right, guys. We are keeping this a little bit shorter, so we're not going to go through everything that happened last week or what's going to come up this week. But we got some big segments for you. Three different segments. One is going to be, what do you make of day one of college basketball? Second segment will be, okay, between now and next Monday, what are your two leans? Because we don't know the spreads for everything. And then tell us about the Champions Classic on Tuesday, because that's what we all want to know, because those are the biggest games coming up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into day one of college basketball, because let's be honest, day two, absolutely terrible. Election day, they basically didn't plan any games for that. So
Yeah.
we're going to call this segment the What Do You Make of This? So after another brutal start, the first one, we're going to have three of these. After another brutal start for the season for Texas A&M, they lose 64 to 61 to UCF, and they're the first team to get their court stormed against them. What do you make of Texas A&M with yet another disappointing start to their season?
All right. So I'm going to save everyone a lot of time. Texas A&M is the same team from
Yeah.
last year.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
save yourself the pain. They led 61 to 56 with
Yeah.
2 minutes and 13 seconds to play. Fun fact for the people, Kyle, let them know. How many free throws do you think Texas A&M attempted down the stretch?
I was trying not to watch the game because I saw them collapsing, but I'm going to guess five. That'll be my guess.
That would be a really good guess if it wasn't Texas A&M.
Yeah.
They attempted zero,
Okay.
zero
Okay.
free throws in the last 2 minutes and 13 seconds. At one point, it was a 3-point game. They were up three, and they possessed the ball for a total of 11 seconds. 11. I don't understand what they were doing. It
Yeah.
was absolute choke job by Texas A&M, and our boy Wade Taylor IV
Yeah.
did not show up. He goes
He
4
was
from the
awful. Yeah.
field. It was absolutely disgusting. If I hope to God no one took anything we said about Texas A&M, because now we look
Yeah.
like a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, like, honestly, everything we said about Texas A&M last podcast was just so bad because of what we saw from them. They had, like you talked about, the no free throws at the end, the very short possession. They also had the ball or they got the ball back three different times in the last possession. That's how like they had a chance to tie the game. They also didn't start Henry Coleman, who's only played there for 3 years and has been a starter every single year. There wasn't an injury listed. He only played 12 minutes. Right now, you can't bet Texas in moving forward. You
No.
can't. You cannot. UCF is always like a 50 to 65 team in the Ken Palm. I looked it up the last 4 years. They always fall in that range. This loss, yeah, A&M ended up losing 15 games last year and still got it in the tournament. This loss, though, will hold their seeding back, and this was game one of the season.
Yeah, it's not a good start for them.
All right, next on the what do you make of this? Number six, Gonzaga absolutely crushes Baylor, number eight, in Vegas, 101 to 63. What is your big takeaway from Gonzaga just absolutely crushing Baylor?
All right, so I'm not ready to crown the Zags. I know everyone's going to jump out and say, "Oh my God, they're the greatest team ever. They killed Baylor. Baylor traditionally a good team." We're going to pull one thing out of the hat here. They shot 61% from the stripe.
Yep.
You cannot shoot 61% from the free throw line and beat good teams, okay? Baylor also only shot 14% from three. We know that's their offense. I
Hmm.
will say, regardless, even if you give them the 40% mark, Baylor that is, from the 3-point line, they still lose that game by double
Yeah.
digits. So the
Hmm.
Zags are a good team, but I'm not here to say that they're a juggernaut yet.
Yeah. It's way too early to crown them as like a juggernaut. I completely agree. And honestly, just to like go ahead and say it, I did terrible on day one. I went 0 for 3. As we're recording this, I just lost another bet by half a point. So I'm now 0 and 4 on the season. But while I bet this one wrong, I will say after the fact, it makes complete sense though. Gonzaga, 7 out of their 8 top players are returnees from last year, and their only other player in that top 8 is a sixth year senior who played 32 games at Arkansas last year. So many transfer for Baylor. We talked about that last time. It's going to take them time. I'm not worried about Baylor. The only thing I'm worried about Baylor is they have one player over 6'6", and he was terrible. So he was terrible
Yeah,
in the game, and we talked about it in one of our previous pods. They're going to have to play small ball, and if they don't get anything from their center, it's going to be really tough for them in the Big 12.
yeah. You can't shoot 14% from three.
You definitely cannot. All right, the last one. What do you make of this? College basketball day one, number 19 Texas, and their transfer squad starts absolutely flat as they can't hold down the Ohio State offense. They lost 80 to 72 to Ohio State. Texas did. What do you make of this one?
I'm actually not worried about Texas at all for some of the same reasons you just referenced about Baylor. But they just caught Ohio State on a hot night. They shot
Hmm.
50% from three, and that's what the Buckeyes tried to do last year, and they were successful for honestly most of the Big Ten schedule. Otherwise, Texas outplayed them in that game. Every
Hmm.
aspect of the game, Texas outplayed them. It just you caught a team on the wrong night. So I'm not worried about Texas. Um, but maybe if anything, we'll see if Ohio State can keep up a little bit of a hot streak to
Yeah.
start the year because it was neutral court game, which generally means they don't shoot well. They did shoot well, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, and out of the three that we actually had here, this was the biggest spread of the three, which is kind of shocking to me because I honestly thought it was more of an even spread. But the only thing that concerns me with this, we always know Texas can't shoot. Like they just have that, like they never like recruit the shooters. It's always either the transfers or like just the hard-nosed defensive players. Their second and third best players, everyone should remember from previous podcasts, is Shedrick from UVA or Virginia and Kaluma from Kansas State. Those guys on their team were never go-to scorers.
Yeah.
Right now, their go-to scorer is Trey Johnson, the freshman. If you're going to rely on a freshman to take on the heavy load all year long, that's going to be very difficult, especially in the Big 12. So I'm a little worried about their scoring, but we know that Texas is always going to play very hard-nosed defense, almost impossible to beat at home. So I'm not worried, but again, just a little worried that they can't score, especially in like hostile environments. I know this one wasn't. It's early, but you can't rely on your freshman to score 29 points every game.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
All right, so this was the worst start to my podcast career, 0-3 in the first day. But we'll bounce back. Not tonight, apparently, 0 for 4. But anything else you take from day one or day two, even though it stunk? Do you have anything else from day one or
Yeah,
day two?
so I think I'm going to not anything from the day, but something I want to get out there for myself because I don't know what everyone's expecting. I only had 5 plays for day one, two and three. Got two
Okay.
more plays as we speak at this moment. We're changing the methodology this year.
Okay.
We're not going for 1,000 plays. We don't try to accomplish the same thing we already did. This year, I'm going to try to shoot for 60%.
Okay. 6%. That'd be
That's
a
a
hell
hell
of
of
a
a
goal. So,
number. Not a great start for two and three. I'll tell you that. I need the two wins tonight, but I just want to put that out there. So probably a few less plays this year. A&M actually absolutely killed us both
yeah.
too. I'm already,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the one thing I have from day one and day two is just everyone's going to hate Cooper Flag before we even get to the new
Oh
year.
my God.
Literally, I watched that. Obviously, as a Duke fan, I watched it from start to finish. I had the pregame on. You would have thought it was 1-on-5. You thought he
Yeah,
would have been playing against Maine by himself. Actually, you would have thought he would have been playing against his brother, who's going to Maine next year, because that's all they talked about the entire game.
yeah, yeah. I got more to talk about on Cooper Flag later.
Okay. Moving on to segment number two, where we're going to go from now, which is Thursday the 7th through Monday, that would be the 11th. What are our two leans? Since we don't have spreads for any of these games, obviously we're encompassing a large part of the schedule. This is kind of what we're going to do. We're not going to give a bunch of picks. We're going to give some picks. What are your leans? If you have two big leans on from Thursday to Monday, what's your first one?
Yep. So my first, I'm gonna call it a big one, really. I do like New Mexico to give UCLA a run this week. I do expect the game to come out UCLA favored by somewhere between five
Mhm.
and a half and 7. We talked about New Mexico, depending on the book, is the favorite to win the Mountain West. They're an extremely tenured team. I don't trust UCLA yet. I know
Mhm.
they've had some luck. I will call it luck here and there the last 2 years. Is it Cronin? I think is the coach still
Yep.
there?
Yep.
Who I love, but I just don't trust UCLA yet. My computer's about to fall. So I like New Mexico to cover the spread, whatever it is, unless it's less than 3. In which case, what the hell?
Dude, I am making this an absolute must-watch game because after one game, obviously super small sample size. New Mexico is number one in tempo, and UCLA is second to last in
Oh
tempo.
my
So I'm
God.
like super pumped to watch that game.
There we go.
But I'll go with my first one, and I just have to come. I had to go with this one because an absolute flub by me so far. The podcast team, UAB lost to Vermont 67 to 62 in the season opener,
Yeah.
but I'm not giving up on it. Vermont is a very difficult team to play at any point in the season. They always are in there to win their conference, and they went 0 for 10 in threes. UAB, that's not going to happen with them. I'm not going to lay the double-digit points that it currently has as the projection on Kim Palm for this game, but I'm going to go with the over, and this because they're playing against Southern Miss. Southern Miss has transfers um, from basically every school, but one of them's Curbelo from Illinois that we all should remember. And out of their starting five, only one player isn't a transfer that averaged double digits at the last college. And that guy is their leading scorer from one game from Miami, who didn't get a play at Miami. He averaged 3 minutes a game. He scored 17 in the first game. So I don't think either of these teams can play any defense. UAB is a good offense. They just played against a really good team that's disciplined in the first game against Vermont. So I think the over under right now on Ken Palm is only 138. I think I'm taking this up to like the mid 140s. So if you can get
Ooh,
it anywhere in that, I'm going to take the over in the UAB Southern Miss game.
nice.
All right, what's your second one?
Second one should come as no surprise. I think Houston's going to absolutely body Auburn. Like
Okay.
I'm actually really curious to see what the books do with this because Auburn's going to have to play a game. I think they play tonight actually.
Mm.
Before they play Houston. Houston obviously crushed with one of my wins. They won by over 35 and a half. Houston could win this game by double digits. I know Auburn's got the big guy there. Golly, I'm gonna have to at some point remember names. I honestly can't remember his name. From
Yeah, yeah, he's like
yeah,
supposed to be up. Mhm.
yeah, big center guy. Yeah, I love Houston. Again, I'm curious to see what the books do with this. I feel like it's a 4 versus 11 matchup. Should be
Yep.
within five, but I could see them easily being like, no, we're not making it that easy for you. Let's make it -9 for Houston, and they're going to be right in that number.
And if you guys remember from previous year's podcast, especially last year, we really referred to Ken Palm a lot just because like they
Hmm.
put their game match before the spreads. They currently have this Auburn is a 5, Houston is a 1, so like they have Auburn pretty high up, but they have Houston at -5 currently.
Okay,
So
okay, I like that.
you pretty much nailed the spread on that one. Uh, all right, so you said you're going with Houston because obviously we loved Houston last podcast. I'm going to go with something else we've been loving. I'm going to call our shot against Kansas. I'm going to go with UNC on Friday
Okay,
with the points. Right now, let me pull up Ken Palm. I have it right here. It is currently UNC getting 8 points. I'll take anywhere from 6 to 9 points with UNC. If it's anything more than that, I love it. I just think UNC's style and length is always difficult no matter what part of the season, especially early in the season.
yep.
Yes, they're on the road, but they don't have a single freshman that gives them like major minutes. So I think that like that veteran leadership or that vet, especially with Davis, I think they'll be
Oh
fine
yeah,
in that atmosphere. And I'm just not, and I know you're not buying Kansas. So I think if somehow, some way we're getting North Carolina on the road close to double digits, I'm going to take that.
yeah, um, yeah, 100%.
All right, so let's move it on to segment number three. All right, this one's fun. I have a lot of details for this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
This is my unofficial start of the college basketball season with the Champions Classic because Duke's always in it. So obviously, this is what I love about college basketball season is their second or third game every single season is in this. It's pretty lame. It's in Atlanta. It used to always be in Chicago or
Yep.
in the East, so I could always go to it. But it's the same four teams as always. The matchups are Michigan State versus number one Kansas, number seven Duke versus Kentucky. Obviously, neutral site games, so like where it's like who's the home, who's the road doesn't really matter. But what is one thing you want to see on Tuesday? These teams play next Tuesday. From either a team perspective, long term, short term, or a player perspective that you really want to see out of either of these games. Not both, but one of these games that you
Yep.
really want to see.
So it's Duke, it's Cooper Flag, it's his coronation, right? He has to show up, biggest stage, biggest games thus far in his college career. You talked about them talking about him a lot in a no-name game. He will be front and center. it's
Yep.
time for him to show up and be what everyone thinks he can be. And honestly, put Duke back on the map, quote unquote,
Mhm.
as a national title favorite and not just someone that's in the top 10.
Yep. And as somebody that watched every play of the Duke game, he missed every long range shot. Like he couldn't hit a three, couldn't hit a long range two. He was great at defense. He made so many plays on defense that got him easy dunks on the other end, or he got layups from him giving somebody an easy layup or him getting an easy layup. So it'll be nice to see his long range game come here. But I'm not going to take the Cooper flag here. I'm going to go something different. I'm going to go with the opposite side. Can Kentucky's depth beat Duke? And why I say this is Kentucky played 10 players in their very first game, 13 or more minutes. And you think that's pretty much opposite of what Calipari did. It's
Oh, yeah.
because Mark Pope's there, and at BYU, he coached there for 5 years. In his last 4 years, he had at least 10 players. He had 2 years with 11 players that averaged over 10 minutes a game. That's just his style. He does not load up on like super talent. He's more of a depth guy. Duke never does that. They loaded up obviously on top talent again. They go 8 deep, basically. Yeah, they played 10 or 11 on Monday, but that's not what they're going to do in big games. And of course, they don't have much muscle because their three best players are probably freshmen. I can almost guarantee you Kentucky tries to get physical with Duke. And it basically is, will Duke hit their shots and will their freshmen avoid foul trouble? But my main takeaway is I want to watch Kentucky because I know Duke. I know what they're going to be. It's the same style Duke always plays. I want to see, can a deep Kentucky team actually live up against big talent? We don't usually see that with Kentucky because usually they're the more talented
Yeah.
team.
No, yeah, love that as well.
All right, so the last one we have here on the Champions Classic is wow. Of course, it's my unofficial start to the college basketball season. Are we kind of sick of this classic?
I put here, I'm gonna read verbatim my notes whenever I read this.
Hmm.
Okay. The teams that are in this tournament no longer represent what they did when this
Hmm.
tournament started. When this tournament started, they were like in and out for the top six teams in the country every year. It was like, to your point, the unofficial, official start because we found out real quick who was free and who wasn't.
Uh-huh.
We need fresh blood. We need fresh faces. The landscape of college basketball has changed. Okay,
Yep.
I think we talked about this for probably 3 years, and it kind of came to fruition last year with just the parity. Now, again, I know the big muscles are still winning the titles, but part of that is UConn was down, and then they had to come back up. But again,
Yeah.
the parity there is now that existing in college basketball, we need to get some more of these schools besides the quote unquote new bloods and or blue bloods some national facing attention. Like I would love to see Creighton in this tournament and not Michigan State,
Yep. Uh-huh.
right? Like that's a team that has talent that we should be able to watch. Get rid of, I'll say Kentucky, even though I know you put them in there. Throw in Alabama, right?
Hmm.
Because again, Kentucky has been in a really weird spot the last 3 years. They're a big name, but like, have they been the best team? No.
Hmm.
Duke and Kansas, okay, you need to keep them around. That's fine, but like, let's mix it up a little bit here. Like, these are no longer the four powerhouses of college basketball.
Yep. Okay, so I love your thoughts. But normally you're the ideas guy. But I came here
Okay.
with an idea for you.
Oh
Okay?
my
How about
goodness.
this? I'm tired of these four, to be honest. I really am. Like I really don't enjoy it anymore, and I've watched it every year, loved it, but I think we need a revamp. So my idea is we make this a rotation. And we should have started it last year, we should have started the year before, but whatever. My rotation is though, whoever hasn't won the championship in the longest time, because this is the Champions Classic, gets bumped and replaced by the team that won the championship last year. So that for this, it would be
Ooh.
Michigan State hasn't won since 2000. We replace them with UConn. Be an awesome matchup. Now we'd have Kansas UConn right off the bat here, you know. And then this year, Kentucky would know if we don't win a championship, we get bumped, and then whoever wins this year gets in it. If we just rotate it, I feel like that would be a hell of a Champions Classic, and like it's kind of a reward for you winning the championship. Is what I like. What do you think about that?
So essentially, I was thinking this as you're explaining it, where you would get to a point where you're only going to have the previous four national title contenders and or
Basically,
winners, basic
yeah.
winners. Okay.
winners, yeah.
Okay. I can get
And
behind
because
that.
and because if we look at it right now, no one in this group there's been okay, so this they've won one title in the last since 2016. No other team in this, so that was Kansas. No other team has won a title since 2016 or been to a title since 2016. So
Hmm, hmm.
what are we calling this Champions Classic at this point?
Wow.
So,
I love that all of your stats just backed up everything I said. I got to spin for you because it's called the Champions Classic.
yeah.
Let's do sometimes soccer has really good ideas. Let's
Okay.
go aggregate points. You get points on a running basis, and let's call it a 3-year basis
That would be awesome. Yeah, I see where you're
of
going. Yeah.
of how well you played in
Hmm.
your conference tournament, and the actual NCAA tournament. You get no credit for any other off-season tournament other than the NCAA tournament. And based on the top four aggregate point collectors, those are the teams that have to be in it.
I mean, that's a lot more in depth, but I feel like
Yeah,
that would bring more, kind of like that the random NBA midseason tournament. It kind of brings more emphasis to the games. I like it. I like
yeah.
it.
That could get crazy, right? Like if you
Yeah.
are Kansas, you're like, yeah, we're fine. We won a
Uh,
national title. We won like 10 fucking conference tournaments in a row.
mhm.
Kentucky, you'd be like 3 years ago, you're sitting there thinking, we've got to figure it out. And now you're sweating because you got
Uh-huh.
it early 2 years in a row. You're like, guys, we're not playing the Champions Classic, which
Yep.
some people might say, like, well, who cares? It's just a tournament. But like
Uh,
that is a big resume builder.
and that's like an intrigue thing to like a freshman coming in. Like, you know what? Second game of the year, I get to play Kentucky in the first
Yeah.
game, or second
I got,
game, you
I got
know?
another one. I got another one. Let's go Adam Silver style here. Let Things are changing. We need to keep it engaging. Okay. Let's do the aggregate points. Top four aggregate point teams play in the Champions Classic to start the year. We could even move it if we need to let teams adjust if they have it. Let's say we played on Thanksgiving, Feast Week. Make Feast Week even better. Whoever wins the Champions Classic, okay, barring anything crazy, guarantees themselves a number one seed.
Oh, that's even
You're
further.
playing for a number one seed in an NCAA tournament.
I heard literally the same like thing about like make these mid-season or early season tournaments like get you into the tournament, and you just took it another step to where they're the first seed now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, theoretically, you would be saying these are the four best teams the last 3 years.
yeah,
Let's reward them for it. Again, I say barring anything drastic because you could have an instance their best player goes down, all of a sudden they lose 11 games, and you're like, okay, this is the same team.
yeah. No, I think there's a lot. There's a big way of improving. I think we've named 1,000 different ways currently, but the Champions Classic is like it's not. It's no longer the way to go. It doesn't
Yeah.
bring in the people. But I think the real issue is just how college basketball starts their season. It is the most unceremonious. Like it is just it's a blah. No one cares when it starts.
Right.
Like it needs a boom because people don't tune in. They always make the joke of March, but even the people that love college basketball, they don't really care about like tonight watching these games that are all 20-point games. So
Yeah.
and you are dark.
My
That's gonna
camera
be
officially, like the light I had officially went out, so you're just gonna see the dark of me now. No,
that's okay.
you are true though, because even people that love college basketball, I just said it, like most people don't even tune in until Feast Week because that's when like finally you get some games.
Yeah.
They treat too much of the early season like an NFL preseason.
Yeah, they really
Like
do.
like you mentioned earlier, does Duke really need to play Maine?
No, no.
Play them in an exhibition game 2 weeks before the season starts. Let's just call a spade a spade. That does not matter to you.
And we were just talking about Texas A&M earlier. They lost, what, 15, 17 games last year? It didn't matter that they beat whatever early in the season. They got the wins in the SEC. Like, don't be afraid to lose early in the season. Half the freaking nation, it seems at this point, makes the tournament. So,
No crap. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. We actually, I think, talked about this last year. After the Super Bowl, we like made a joke like, "Oh, hey, everyone that finally decided to show up, here's what's
Yeah.
happened the last
Uh,
3 months you
yeah.
guys missed."
All right. Well, there's our three segments. Try to keep them a little shorter this time. Jordan is absolutely can't be seen right now. So,
No, don't want to be seen. Sorry.
but then again, thanks again for joining us. Sorry that I'm 0 for 4. Hopefully, it'll be 1 for 4 when you're listening to this. I will do better. I've done better in the recent Sittin courtside. picks. Follow us on Twitter. He's at Mingo Made One. I am at Kyle Cliffy, and we will talk to you soon. Actually, next week. And best of luck in your bets this weekend.
So yes.